you may know this, but there's a moment in every single story where faith has to no longer remain on the page, but it has to step out of a page onto real life, into real life. It can no longer be a theory. It can no longer be this idea. It has to be something that you step into. And normally it comes when you can't plan it out. Normally it comes when you are unable to predict an outcome. It normally comes when you can't protect yourself from what might happen next. And in those moments, you can only decide, will I trust God enough to move? Will I trust God enough to step into the unknown? Will I trust God enough to be determined to step in obedience to what's next? And that's where we find ourselves in Ruth chapter 3. Just here's how it's going, okay? So basically, the harvesting is over, the gathering, the putting the grain together, all of that stuff is over. They finished that. The fields, they're quiet. They've been picked over. And the next chapter, that next chapter in the life of Ruth, well, now it hinges on a single night. For Ruth, it hinges on this night of faith, on this night of risk, and a night of obedience. And it's in this moment that Naomi looks at her daughter-in-law and says something that is both tender and absolutely terrifying. Ruth chapter 3, verse 1. One day, Naomi said to Ruth, my daughter, it's time that I found a permanent home for you. But I thought things were going so well. What do you mean? It's time that I found a permanent home for you so that you will be provided for. She's saying what maybe some parents of adult children are saying, it's time. Wasn't ready for that amen. All right, so Ruth said, it's time. You've been faithful in the field. You've been loyal to me, Naomi says. You have honored God, but now it's time for you to take another step of faith. Now, have you ever been there? Have you been in that moment where that next step that is obedience, it doesn't make any sense. It's not logical. It's not safe. It's not the moment that you were looking for. It's that place where doing the right thing might look to others as being foolish. And it's usually when you're stepping forward into the unknown. For some, it's walking away from a job that's secure, but it's spiritually suffocating you. For others, it's opening your heart again after being hurt. For a parent, it might mean letting go of control and trusting God with your child's future. For a teenager, it might mean choosing conviction over popularity. But for every believer, it's that moment, the one where faith stops being theory and it becomes risk. Where following Jesus is no longer sitting in that safe spot. It's stepping out into something that you can't control, that you didn't choose. But Ruth, she's about to live that kind of faith. So Naomi had a plan. And Naomi, she's already had one plan, and it worked out okay so far, right? But this moment, she has another plan, and it is bold. And she tells Ruth to go to the threshing floor. Hey, just go to the threshing floor where Boaz will be sleeping after the harvest, uncover his feet, and lie down. Now, it sounds pretty strange to us, right? And if it doesn't, I have questions. But this moment was also very risky to Ruth. This thing could easily go wrong. There could be a massive misunderstanding, a huge miscommunication. There could be rejection. Ruth's reputation is now going to be on the line. But curiously enough, Ruth doesn't argue. Here's what Naomi says, verse 2. Boaz, she says, listen. Boaz, he's a close relative of ours, and he's been very kind by letting you gather grain with his young women. So tonight, he will be winnowing barley at the threshing floor. Now, do as I tell you. Take a bath, put on perfume, and dress in your nicest clothes. Now, if the other sounded weird, this should sound right, okay? If you want to get a date, take a bath, put on perfume or cologne, whatever, right? Okay, and dress in nice clothes. Don't look like you just came out of playing in a mud pit, right? Good advice here. The other, I'm not so sure, okay? Here comes the unsure part, right? Okay, she says, listen, now go to the threshing floor, but sneak in, stand in the shadows. Don't let Boaz see you until he is finished eating and drinking. And be sure to notice where he lies down. Pay attention so that you don't go to the wrong person. Good advice. Now, make sure it's Boaz and lay down, uncover his feet and lay down there. And he will tell you what to do. Ruth has a moment. She can say, that is insane. Or she'll say this, I will do everything you say. I will do everything you say, Ruth replied. And you can imagine this. I mean, Ruth walking through this night. She's got her hair, it's on point. She smells good. She has her good clothes on. Everything is just the way that it should be. The air is thick with the smell of grain, and the only light that is coming is coming from the fading embers of the fires that are near the threshing floor. In her heart, it is pounding. It's pounding, and every single step that she takes is a step away from self-protection. It's a step into vulnerability. It's a step away from what is safe, but it is a step also towards God's providence. Let's rest assured here that she's not trying to manipulate a man. She's not trying to catch him. That's not what she's trying to do. She is trusting a redeemer. She isn't chasing a future. She's walking toward God's plan. You know, somewhere between the field and the threshing floor, Ruth becomes a living picture of what redemption requires. She becomes this picture of what redemption requires. It's that faith that moves when your feelings don't confirm what God is doing. It's faith before feeling. It's that moment as she kneels quietly before Boaz's feet. In that moment, she's not taking her life and her future into her hands. She's placing them into God's. She's saying with her actions, as what every other follower of Jesus must say with their life, simply this: I trust you enough to surrender here. Have you been there? Have you done that? Have you been in a moment in your faith where the only thing you had left is this: God, I surrender. I surrender enough. I'm right. It's enough. I can't do it anymore. I surrender right here, right now. And it's in that moment of vulnerability. It's there in that vulnerable act of faith that redemption begins to move. That moment of surrender. God, I can't do this on my own, but I know that you can. God, I can't atone for my sin, but I know Jesus can. You know, redemption always begins with surrender. But here's the thing. Ruth has no guarantee of how this will turn out. She has no guarantee because there wasn't this booming voice saying, don't worry, he'll say yes. She has none of that. No assurance, no safety, no promise of reward. The only thing she only has faith. Only faith that the God who provided the field will also be faithful on the threshing floor. So she moves through the darkness, staying in the shadows, each step trembling, every step a whisper of trust. God, I trust you. Every crunch of grain is a reminder of obedience. You're like, listen, it's just a place where they're tossing this grain in the air. There's nothing to worry about there. What we don't know about the threshing floor. The threshing floor, first, it was where the harvest was processed. The grain was separated from the husk. Simple, right? No big deal. But here's what we miss. The threshing floor was also a place of vulnerability. Why is that, you ask? Because the workers slept there. They slept there to protect the crops. But over time, as with some things, the place becomes a place of vulnerability. A place of, let's just call it, questionable behavior. You know the kind, right? The moments where your integrity can be and is often compromised. Now let's get that in mind as we think about what's going on here with Ruth. So when Naomi tells Ruth, she says, listen, you need to go there. She's sending Ruth into a place that is risky. She's sending her into a place where she has no security, where she is vulnerable, and it is dangerous. Ruth is stepping into a moment that could very easily be misunderstood. I mean, I don't know about you, but do you think that guys are always good at picking up signals? That's probably another day. She's stepping into a moment that could be easily misunderstood, and one that could absolutely destroy her reputation. And any semblance of safety is out the window. But yet, she goes. She's not going to manipulate Boaz. She's not going there to seduce him. She's going there to trust him. Now, I've been upright with you on this, that I don't believe that Ruth is a story of romance, but there's some romantic undertones in it. This story is a story of righteousness. It's a story of faithfulness. Ruth's obedience here, her obedience is bold and it's pure. And she's trusting that the God who led her to the fields is now going to lead Boaz's heart. She's trusting if God can protect me in the fields, surely he can be over this man's heart. That his heart will respond and act with integrity. Now, every person who walks with God eventually comes to their own threshing floor moment, the moment where you have to trust God more than anything else, where your faith is tested, where your motives, they're refined and shown for exactly what they are, and where trust has to equal obedience. Have you been there in the threshing floor? For the single parent, it might be trusting God when the numbers don't quite add up. For the young adult, it's taking a stand for purity or purpose when the world laughs at convictions. For the couple in the throes of conflict, it's choosing reconciliation. It's choosing to reconcile when pride says, just walk away. For the believers that are fighting doubt, for the believers that are fighting doubt, it's praying again, even when you feel like you're unheard. Now, Ruth's story whispers to every heart that's afraid to move. Have you been there? Have you been paralyzed in fear? Have you stood on the edge of a decision knowing that the next step is a step that you didn't plan? But here's what Ruth knew. If God called you to it, he will meet you in it. She doesn't know. She doesn't know how Boaz will respond. The only thing she knows is that God is faithful. And for her, that's enough to keep walking. She's walking in the shadows. Verse 7. And Boaz, he finished eating and drinking and was in good spirits, and he lay down at the far end of the pile of grain, and he went to sleep. Then Ruth came quietly. She uncovered his feet, and she laid down. And in this, we have a moment of complete surrender. Ruth lays down at the feet of the only man who can redeem her and Naomi's future. She lays down in humility. She lays down in vulnerability. And she positions herself for redemption. You guys, that's what faith looks like. Placing yourself at the feet of the Redeemer and then trusting him with your story. See, faith often begins where control ends. So as the night unfolds, there's something beautiful that happens. Boaz wakes and he finds Ruth at his feet. In a moment of surprise, the whole moment, the whole story, it could have unraveled. Boaz wakes suddenly, the night is still. The harvest floor, it smells of grain and smoke. The hum of celebration is now silent. Verse 8. Around midnight, Boaz, he suddenly woke up and turned over, and he was surprised to find a woman at his feet, as he should have been, right? He says, "Who are you?" She says, "I'm your servant Ruth," she replied. Spread the corner of your covering over me, for you are my family redeemer. You guys, this is the hinge of this story. It's the hinge of the story, the moment, the very moment where everything could collapse into compromise. And what happens next? It reveals that Boaz is a godly man. He doesn't take advantage of Ruth's vulnerability. He protects it. He's a godly man. He doesn't shame her for being there. He shields her from gossip and harm. He's a godly man. He doesn't exploit the moment. He redeems it. You know, our integrity is tested when no one else is watching. Boaz could have seen this moment entirely differently. He could have seen it as an opportunity for self-gratification. Instead, he sees it as a moment of sacred responsibility. And in that moment, he mirrors the heart of God, covering Ruth, not with desire, but with dignity. Ruth said, "Spread the corner of your garment over me." You guys, this wasn't about romance. This was about redemption. She's invoking right here covenant language. In Ezekiel chapter 16, when God describes his covenant with Israel, here's what he says. Ezekiel 16:8, he says, I wrapped my cloak around you to cover your nakedness. I declared my marriage vows. I made a covenant with you, says the sovereign Lord, and you became mine. When Ruth says, "Spread the corner of your cloak over me," she's appealing to mercy. She's saying, Boaz, you're the one that can redeem us. Boaz, will you act on behalf of God? And here's how he responds. Verse 10. The Lord bless you, my daughter. You are showing even more loyalty, even more family loyalty now than you did before. The Lord bless you for your loyalty. Now don't worry. Now don't worry about anything. I will do what is necessary. Don't worry, I'll take care of it, for everyone in town knows that you are a virtuous woman. Ruth's courage and Boaz's integrity collide in this moment to give us the anatomy of redemption. It's never one-sided. It's God working through people who each do their part. One with humble faith, the other with holy restraint. That's what healthy connection looks like. It's mutual honor. It's boundaries rooted in blessing. It's a reflection of the gospel itself where grace and truth meet and both are safe. Guys, this is what godly pursuit looks like. Godly pursuit looks like integrity before intimacy. It's what covenant love does. It protects before it pleases. It's what integrity demands. Guarding the other's dignity as fiercely as your own. It's a reminder that redemption doesn't flourish in perfection. Redemption flourishes in obedience. So now the sun is beginning to rise over Bethlehem. The risk of Ruth is over, and she gathers herself quietly to leave the threshing floor. Verse 14. So Ruth lay at Boaz's feet until the morning, but she got up before it was light enough for people to recognize each other. I just want you to know this is true. That does happen. There's a moment in the morning where you can't see well enough to recognize people. Try it sometime. Boaz said, "No one must know that a woman was here at the threshing floor. I want to protect your integrity. I want to shield you from gossip. No one needs to know that you are here." Then Boaz says to her, "Bring your cloak and spread it out." He measured 6 scoops of barley. That's a lot of barley. He put it in her cloak and put it on her back because she wasn't going to be able to hold it in any other way. Then he returned to town. So Boaz does not leave her empty-handed. He doesn't say, "Go home and, we'll talk later." He doesn't leave her empty-handed. Instead, he says, "I'm going to give you a sign of promise." He doesn't say, "Hey, let's wait and see what happens. Let's see how this thing shakes out." He gives her a tangible sign of his promise. He puts her a down payment on redemption, fills her cloak with grain. He gives her a tangible sign of his promise. He gives her 6 measures of barley. That would have most certainly been far too heavy for Ruth to carry easily. But you guys, that was the point. Boaz wanted Ruth to feel the weight of his commitment. He wanted her to walk home carrying proof that her faith and her obedience had not gone unseen. Verse 16. When Ruth went back to her mother-in-law, Naomi asked, "What happened, my daughter?" And Ruth told Naomi everything Boaz had done for her. And she added this. He gave me these 6 scoops of barley. He gave me these 6 scoops of barley and said, "Don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed." Then Naomi, she said this to her, "Just be patient, my daughter. Just be patient until we hear what happens. The man won't rest until he has settled things today." You guys, Ruth had been faithful in the field. She was courageous on the threshing floor. And now she is called to be patient in the waiting. That's the rhythm of redemption. Faith, obedience, and rest. Ruth's story shows that obedience is never wasted. Every step of risk is redeemed. Every act of trust is multiplied. And every night of waiting is prepping for the dawn. And that's how God works. He turns faith into fruit. He transforms vulnerability into victory, because he's the God who provides evidence in the middle of a process. He puts grain in your hands while the harvest is not yet finished. And we should take heart in that. For the parent that's praying for a prodigal, keep walking in obedience. You don't see it yet, but God is already working in their heart. For the believer waiting on a breakthrough, God is not idle in your silence. Redemption may already be in motion behind the scenes. For the weary disciple, the field of obedience will always produce a harvest, a blessing. Even if growing takes longer than you'd hoped. Boaz's promise of redemption foreshadows the greatest redeemer who would come. Boaz's promise of redemption foreshadows Jesus. Now, Jesus did not and will not send us away empty-handed. He fills our life with grace upon grace. In Ruth's journey to this point, it's been a steady climb. It's been a steady climb from famine to faithfulness, from fear to favor. She has walked every step with courage. She's walked every step with humility and trust. And now, she waits. Let's be honest, that's the hardest part. It's the hardest part. The waiting between obedience and outcome. The waiting between, I will do whatever you say, and the man will not rest until this matter is settled. Every believer is in between this sooner or later. You've done what God asks. You've walked the hard road. You've prayed the bold prayers. And now, you wait. And in that waiting, God is already at work. Boaz's promise, it wasn't his own. That promise was heaven's whisper through the lips of a man. Redemption is coming. Redemption is coming. Obedience may lead you into unknown places, but it never leaves you unseen by God. He may lead you into a place that you've never gone, but he never leaves you in a place he doesn't see you. And when you step in faith, God steps in power. When you trust in the dark, he moves in the light. What begins in obedience always ends in redemption. But here's what you can't do. Don't confuse silence with absence. God is working while you rest. Don't let fear make you miss the miracle. God honors those who walk in trust. Redemption might already be in motion. You just can't see it yet. Whatever step God is calling you to take, whatever threshing floor he's asking you to trust him on, trust him. Obedience often feels risky, but it is the path that God uses for redemption. Obedience is the pathway to redemption. Because the same God who met Ruth in the dark, he'll meet you there too. Let's pray.